bloody car jacks, so I'll need either a better jack or some blocks of wood. Well, they say third time's the charm, and today is the third day that I've been trying to do a bloody oil change. The first day, I can't actually remember what happened. The second day, I had to go to the tip and do a whole bunch of other stuff, and I needed to get another jack. But thank you to Henry, who was very generous and let me borrow his jack. You're never getting that back, mate. Hope you realize that. Once you borrow a jack from someone, it is effectively yours at that point. So now we can finally actually jack up the car, which will be good, and have a proper look under it. We'll do all our fluids and everything, and then I'll probably just get round to fixing up the wrap on the mirrors. Apart from that, there's not really all that much I need to do. I'll also look at the speakers. I didn't even end up getting a soldering iron, but I might just end up bringing a Bluetooth speaker, because I know that's what a lot of drift cars do. I saw this bloke had a Bluetooth speaker literally zip tied to his roll cage, and I was thinking, yeah, that seems pretty drift car-y. If I need to, it's just I want to actually have fully hectic beats, because I don't know if I'm weird, but when I drive with music, I just drive a lot harder and a lot more like to my sort of the peak of my level. I'm a lot less nervous and I'm willing to send it a lot harder. The main problem I have with this thing right now is just I'm way too nervous to drive it, because I really like it and I don't want to write it off, but I know that if I want to do it all well when it comes to drifting, I'm going to have to be willing to sort of exceed my limits. The problem with the limits of your driving skill is you don't know where they are until you've exceeded them. So I guess I'm gonna have to exceed it and hopefully do it in a safer way as possible. So yes, for now we're gonna jack up this thing and then do all the fluids. I'll do fuel filter, oil itself obviously. Apart from that, shouldn't really have too much else to do. I'll probably change my diff oil anyway. I've got some there and it wouldn't hurt to have new diff oil in it. Dudes with stock Hilux is flexing. BEA beautiful. Now, I was contemplating adjusting these coilovers, but first of all, make it even harder to jack up. Second of all, I can't really be bothered to mess around with the settings for these, because I checked and these are $250 coilovers. So I'm gonna have to get some nicer coilovers at some point anyway. So I'll probably just run them how they are for now, and then if it actually ends up being a problem, I will change them. But as of right now, it gets the job done. Warmed up a bit, so I've had a costume change now. I'm assuming this will be either a 12 or 14 mil. Nope, it's not a 12, so it must be a bloody 14. We've got our trusty super cheap auto oil catcher, so that we don't make a complete mess. Although, knowing me, I'll still end up making a complete mess. So we keep heaps of pressure on that until it fully comes loose of the thread. Try not to drop our oil sump plug in the oil, because going fishing for your oil sump plug is not fun. Look at that bloody BEA beautiful, flawless, did not spill a drop. So is it just me, or does that seem like a really short oil sump plug to you? I mean, it's not like it's holding much pressure, but it's so small. Now the oil capacity on these motors is apparently about 4.5 litres, a little bit less, and we've got 6 litres oil, so we should be fine. Now next, I need to look for my oil filter. So our filter's just through there, you can see it's blue. I can reach it from here, it's going to be a lot easier to get from the top, but because the car's actually jacked up, I won't actually be able to open my bonnet all the way without it hitting the roof. So I'm going to try. It's probably not going to work, seeing as it's probably going to be tight as all anything, but I'm going to try and get it from underneath here, because it'd save me having to jack the car down just to try and get the oil filter off. But this is a very awkward way of doing it, and it's probably not going to work. I would assume not. No, I don't think I'm going to be able to get that. So it looks like I'm going to have to put the sump plug back on, do all that, and then take the oil filter off from the top after putting the car back down. Alright, we've got the car back down, but now I'm going to have to get it off those wooden blocks, because otherwise the whole car is like this, and when I fill up my oil, I'm not actually going to be able to check my level properly, because it's going to be on a bit of an angle. So I'll see if I can just try and roll it off that way. as you can see, it's a lot easier to get from the top here, although there is a lot of cables and stuff in the way. All of this is just flexible, so you can move that out of the way because it's all just wiring. So let's see if we can get this out with our hands, or if we're gonna have to go with the trusty old screwdriver technique. Now for the moment of truth, whether or not I'm gonna have to get out the old trusty screwdriver, or if my life is gonna be easy. Oh, it's gonna be an easy day, boys. It's an easy day. Out with the old, in with the new. And I don't actually think we spilled too much oil. Nice new Ryco oil filter. Just realized this is a genuine Nissan oil filter. Bloody hell, that's pretty cool. I reckon I could sell that for fucking $50. Need genuine Nissan parts. Nice new oil filter. Nice new Castrol Edge oil. Now I hear people say that you should fill up your oil filter before putting it in. First of all, I don't know why people do that, because you're putting it on an angle and you're probably going to end up spilling a whole bunch of oil. I was never taught to like fill it with oil. I was just always taught just get a bit of oil on your finger and just go around the seal. Basically just helps it actually seal. It means that you're not going to have a shit ton of oil leaking out and everything. I love wearing cotton drill shirts. You could just use yourself as a rag. Now for the love of God, if you're putting on an oil filter, for the sake of the bloke who might be buying the car after you, please do not use a fastening tool, like one of the things you use to take off your oil filter, to put your oil filter on. You don't need to do that. Oil filter is on, and now for the fun part of actually filling her up with oil. Shout out to Jake for teaching me this one before I knew anything about cars. It's the first lesson I ever learned, and it has stuck with me ever since. When you're filling up your oil, and you got your oil, if you're not using a funnel and you're lazy like me, instead of pouring it in like this and having it spill everywhere, turn it on its side and pour it in like that. It'll change the point when the oil starts actually flowing out, so you'll be able to get it a lot closer to your actual hole so you don't spill oil everywhere. And if you're also lazy like me and don't use a funnel, I recommend at least putting a rag around your oil fill. At least that way, when you inevitably do spill some, it'll be soaked up by the rag and not just go all over your engine everywhere. Realistically, I could just get a funnel, but do I really want to spend $3 on a funnel? Perfect, didn't spill a drop. I am a living god. So RB25 oil capacity is 4.3-ish litres. This is a 6 litre bottle, and you can see the increments. You can see a little litre marks here. So what I've done is I've just gone to the 2 litre mark, and then from here I'll just start manually with the dipstick, check my oil, and then go from there. Still below the low, so we've got more to go. I am a poet, and I was indeed unaware of my status of a poet. Lube her up like sluts on a Sunday, lube her up like sluts on a Sunday. It's sort of hard to tell, but we're just at the top of the high there, so that's right where we want to be. So, beautiful job, if I do say so myself. B-E-A-beautiful. Now next, I'm just going to do my fuel filter. Realistically, I shouldn't have to. I assume it wouldn't be due for one, but also it's like $15–20. I'd rather just do it and not have to worry about it than have it not be changed in like 10 years and just have terrible fuel. So it doesn't hurt to change it, so I might as well. So I've got a little chode screwdriver to take it off and a little cup to catch our fuel. So the plan is probably just take off this one first, because it's a little bit facing higher up, so that should hopefully have less fuel in it. And that way I'll just be able to tip out any of the fuel into there, and that way I'll actually be able to see the fuel. I haven't had any issues, but in case the fuel is a bit dodgy, at least that way I'll be able to see it. I will say these are some rather odd hose clamps. I'm assuming that doesn't, nope, it does thread all the way through, nice. I will say I've never run into hose clamps with Phillips head screws on them before, but I mean the premise is the same. Loosen the screw and then get the hose clamp off. I want to see if I can try and wriggle it off without completely taking the screw out, but I don't think I'm going to be able to. So it looks like we're going to have to completely take this out and hopefully not lose this screw. Make sure all that's drained out. You know how I mentioned that those hose clamps were really weird and I was guaranteed to lose a part? Well, I lost the threaded part that I need and I don't know where I put it. So it looks like it's going to be a trip to Super Cheap to get some actual normal hose clamps, which I guess isn't really too much of a problem because it's always handy to have hose clamps anyway, and it means I won't have to use the weird hose clamps in the future if I ever have to do it again. We got some normal hose clamps, not weird ones that come in 3 different pieces so you can lose it. And we also got some electrical tape because I couldn't be bothered to buy a soldering iron to test the speakers, because I still don't actually know if the speakers work, and I wouldn't want to buy a soldering iron and do all the work on it to find out the speakers don't work. So for now, electrical tape will have to do. Alright, we got the new fuel filter in. As you can see there, we got regular hose clamps on it instead of the weird little ones. So my life is a lot easier now. It's all good and secured, didn't lose too much fuel when I took off the other half. Old one's here, there's my fuel there. I mean, I don't know exactly what fuel should look like, but I mean, there's no shit in it, so that's something. But it's nice to just have a new fuel filter anyway. Just gonna start the car now, make sure we got oil pressure, make sure nothing is leaking underneath, which there doesn't seem to be. And then from there, we should be all good. The oil was also very decently black, so definitely due for an oil change. We've got nothing leaking here, which is always a good sign. No leaks or anything underneath, so that's all good. Working. Now the next thing is just finding out which one of these belts has the slack. That one is definitely got a decent amount of slack, so I'm assuming that is potentially the problem. That one's actually not too bad. So it's not our main alternator belt, it's just our AC belt, which honestly isn't too much of an issue. Okay, so I found out what I need to do. First of all, this is the power steering pump, not the AC compressor. The AC compressor's underneath. Me being the numpty I am, I was just like, oh, it's on its own belt there, it must be the AC. But then I realized there's actually 3 belts. So the main AC drive belt is fine, you can't really turn it any more than that. AC belt, once again, sort of the same, but power steering belt, you can pretty much turn it more than 180 degrees. It's hard to see there, but yeah, as you can see, it's very much loose. So I'm assuming this is the problem. I just started it up before and it was still screeching. So the tensioner for it's just there, so I'll give it a bit of a tighten, get that a bit tighter, and then start it up and see if that fixes the problem. Okay, so we've well truly found the problem. I fully have the retentioner literally maxed out, so it's as tight as it can go, and it still is as loose as anything. So I did some good old Mr. Googling and found out the belt that this should be. The 2 ones I've found, it's either a 3PK 840 or an 835. Well, it's pretty hard to see. I'm going to zoom in here, but that is an 855, meaning that it's 20 to 15 mil bigger than it should be, which would make sense as to why there's so much extra tension on it. So I'm gonna go and get a belt that actually fits this and change that, and that way we'll actually have a tight belt. Seeing things that I may never see again, I can't wait to get on the road again. After going to 2 different places, both Repco and Supercheap didn't have the belt I needed. The only one at all close they had was the 3PK 855, which is the same one that's on there now. I'm just hoping that the last bloke who put in the belt did put in a somewhat right belt. So I'm just hoping that I can just max out the tightening and hope that it still sort of works. Down the track I'll get a belt that fits more properly. But at least for now, I just want to get rid of the major squeak. And if it's still squeaking, I'm just gonna have to order in the right belt. So hopefully I didn't just waste $25. So we're back now. Hopefully this will work. I didn't really explain it properly last time anyway, so I'll go through it again. Basically, there's this 14 mil screw up the top. What that basically does is loosens this arm here, which lets it pivot up and down that way. So you're going to want to loosen that. Don't completely remove it, just loosen it a couple of times. It's having a very difficult time focusing. But underneath there's a 12 mil. Just going to want to do the same thing, just loosen that, and that'll basically let it slide along this actuator here. Then there's also obviously this 12 mil nut here. Just want to loosen that to about halfway down the screw, and that'll just let you fully loosen it up. So we've put in the new belt, maxed out the tensioner again, and I reckon it definitely is a little bit tighter than it was, but it's definitely not necessarily perfect. but for now I reckon it'll do. Now for the moment of truth to see if it'll actually turn over and make a terrible noise or not, or to see if I just wasted $25. Like I just wasted $25. That's kind of annoying, but you know, it is what it is. Still no oil leaks or fuel leaks or anything, so that's a plus. We'll call that a win for today. I'm probably not going to do anything else on the car today. It's already 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I've got till this weekend. All I really need to do now is mechanically sound ready to go. Basically, I guess all I have to do now is just fix the speakers if I want to use them. Otherwise I'll just use the Bluetooth speaker. And apart from that, fix up the little bit of wrap to go. So hopefully it goes well. Thank you very much for tuning in. This has been a 3-day ordeal just to try and change my bloody oil. Thank you very much to Henry. I will be returning your jack. I'm not keeping it forever, don't worry. Stay tuned and look forward to the video this weekend, or maybe on the Monday or Tuesday whenever I get around to editing it. I'm going to take my drone and everything, so I should get some cool aerial shots and everything. Should be a good day. Hopefully all goes to plan and I don't ride off my car. It'd be a very anticlimactic way to finish this whole thing, you know. I spend a couple of weeks getting the car ready, hyping it up, and then I just write my car off on the first run. I'd be very upset. It's a QR short track. If anyone knows sort of anything about Willowbank Queensland Raceway, it's the skid pad. It's a skid control event. It's basically just, they set up some cones at the end. It's actually pretty hard to lose traction because it's where they do all the burnouts. So there's a lot of grip and it's hard to lose traction, but it's a really good thing just to learn because I'm in a closed area and it means I have to be conscious of like walls and everything. And it means when I actually get out on the track, I'll be a lot more confident. I won't have any walls or anything and I'll be able to really give it a send. But thank you very much for watching. Stay tuned for the video this weekend and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.
Makes sense.